Hi everybody, this is Lauren coming at you from the Break Zone with another Opus 6 element reveal and review and first impression. So we're going to go over the cards and how they affect the current constructed meta, as well as how they shape out in the sealed meta as well, since sealed is going to be one of the options that you're going to be able to play into in order to qualify for the North America Championship. So that's going to be quite relevant. And also the fact that Opus 6 is going to be I believe the format that's going to be used, or the latest expansion that is going to be used in the Worlds tournament. So some of these cards are going to be definitely interesting to keep track of and to use and tune your decks with. So we're going to start off with Agito Marugito. Made quite the splash when it was revealed, spoiled. 5 CP backup from Final Fantasy 11. It's a mage. And when it enters the field, you can select. It's a modular backup. You're going to be able to select one of two modes, whether you want to cast a summon from your hand without paying the cost, which is pretty good, especially if you have things like 9 CP Raiden, for example. Being able to play it out is going to be nice, and being able to choose up to 2 summons from your break zone, add them to your hand. So you already noticed that one of the stronger decks that came out of Opus 5 was Earth Wind, and they play normally Earth Wind plays a full set of Star Sybil, and Star Sybil is going to be able to search out for Agito Marugito if you want to. Also, a bunch of summons. Keep in mind though that Tola has been quite hot in the meta lately, and so if you're relying on summons quite a bit, the key ones that you want to play are usually going to be able to be cancelled by Tola. So be careful about that. But the second ability, for example, is going to be able to get you 2 summons. Keep in mind that all of these abilities that enter the field can also be cancelled by Tola. So that would be kind of interesting to see if your opponent wants to go ahead and break their Tola in order to prevent Agito Marugito from getting you the abilities. But that's definitely something that you have to be careful about, because if that's your out to Tola, you're definitely going to run into trouble. Okay. Next up, we're going to go over Dark Knight, which is a multi-card. 3 CP standard unit from Final Fantasy 14, 9,000 power, so that's definitely above the curve. But it does have a drawback of whenever Dark Knight receives damage, that damage increases by 4,000. So this card is, you could think of Rabond from Opus 4, where maybe not when it enters a field, but the fact that the function is going to be able to kind of break your opposing forwards are larger, but you're going to have to force that that specific forward to attack or to block Dark Knight. So that's going to be kind of difficult. This card's going to be pretty good in sealed, in my opinion, because it can definitely break through some stuff as long as the forward is below 5k, so 4k. Then Dark Knight's going to be very effective, but it's a little bit tricky to use, so we'll have to see. But 9,000 power usually is quite relevant in sealed. Okay. Next up, we're going to go over Warrior of Light, 6 CP. Wow, that's expensive, especially for a 7,000 power forward. But it does come with some abilities where you're going to have some CP refund if you want to think about it that way. Being able to choose one job standard unit of cost 2 or less in your break zone and to play it onto the field. And when a job standard unit enters your field, Warrior of Light gains 2,000 power until end of turn. So if you play standard unit deck with a Warrior of Light, at least this one versus instead of the water one from Opus 1, that's going to be pretty interesting. I do like the water one a little bit better in that sense, but to have that Opus 2 Ingus type of effect, being able to bring a job standard unit of any element of cost 2 or less from your break zone onto the field, whether you want to think about forwards or backups. Early on, the backups are technically going to give you a 4 CP rebate if you think about it that way, because a card should be thought of as about 2 CP, and the cost of the 2 CP, let's say forward or backup, would also be 2 CP. So you're getting 4 CP refund, meaning you're getting a 2 cost 7k technically, if you're able to make full use of all the abilities on this character. And if you play a lot of standard units, then Warrior of Light is going to get a boost. So that's kind of cool, but that's pretty, let's say, niche in my opinion. Even if you were to build your deck around this card, if your opponent is able to deal with, let's say, to deal 7,000 power, 7,000 damage to Warrior of Light, while the plus 2,000 power is on the stack, then they're definitely going to be able to wreck your deck that way if you really want to go in that direction. And that's why I feel a little bit better about using the Water Warrior of Light from Opus 1 normally, if I were to go with standard units. Now, if you go with a special, that's going to be pretty interesting, seeing that you give a bit of a Gapal effect, plus 3,000 power, but also Brave. So if you're trying to just kind of finish up the game in 2 turns, where all your forwards attack one time and they have Brave and they'll be able to handle the backswing as well, that's going to be interesting. But it seems a little bit difficult to set up, so I'll have to wait and see if people are able to actually use this card effectively. Next up, we've got Epitaph. So Epitaph is a 3CP backup from Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. That's a king, and is able to search for one category Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicle forward and add it to your hand. So in Constructed, the main ones that you can think of for Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles will most likely be Mira, and not in the future, well, in this set actually, you'll also be able to find Leo. So if you're able to build your deck to revolve around multiple elements, and you have, let's say, more than one copy of Epitaph, so you're able to get Leo out pretty effectively, then that's going to be pretty interesting, seeing that you will have access to all the elements at that time. But Leo tends to be a little bit vulnerable, so I don't know how much a deck that focuses so much on just getting Leo up and active to give you the flexibility of using any element is going to be relevant or not. But it could be interesting. And if you play in sealed, being able to search out a forward, and let's say you might have 2 to 3 backups at the time, so Leo is going to turn into a 4,000 power forward if you have three backups in play. But if you have more forwards and everything, it feels a little bit like a win more card, you could say, where in case you're ahead is going to help you, but in case you're behind, Leo might not help you as much unless you really build your deck to revolve around having multiple elements or access to all elements. Okay. Next up, we've got a card that's been spoiled before, Scholar. Scholar is a really cool card in my opinion, being able to, well, not only being a 2CP backup, which is always great, one that can break itself is awesome, and it's from Final Fantasy Tactics Advance 2 with amazing art, and it's a standard unit, so you could use it with a Warrior of Light if you really wanted to, for example. 2 Earth CP Dole, put Scholar into the break zone, choose 1 Earth summon from your break zone, add it to your hand. So you start seeing a theme that Earth really likes its summons. So you've got Agido Marugido, you got Scholar, well, obviously you'll also have a theme of standard units, which is not the first time we see it. We've seen it in Opus 2 with Ingus, so we'll have to see how well that works out. But it looks like an interesting card, being able to play it early for being a 2CP backup, and later on being able to trade it out to break it in order to get, let's say, a Hecatoncheir from Opus 4 or something like that. That's going to be pretty interesting. And if you want to play it in sealed, well, there's a 2CP backup, so that's always good. But being able to replay your key summons, let's say if you have Titaned in this deck, because that's definitely one of the summons, or Cactuar. So let me see if I can kind of fit that in there. Ta-da-ta-da! Got a Cactuar here, and a Titan. So if you're able to fit Scholar and you have the other summons there in your deck, then this could be very useful, because removal helps a lot in sealed. So normally you want to focus your deck around having larger forwards, but summons really help you with all those combat tricks, and sometimes just go over the top of and trade, or even just take out larger forwards that might get in your way. Okay. Next up, we've got, well, that's another one of those standard units. That's 2CP. Machinist, another multi-card from Final Fantasy 14, and it's a backup with 2 Earth, 1 of any element, and Dole, and put into the break zone. Choose 1 forward opponent of choose 1 forward of power 5,000 or less. Break it. I think this this backup's a little bit niche in Constructed. I don't think it's going to see that much play. But if you're talking about sealed, there's definitely going to be some forwards that are on the smaller side that might give you trouble. We're talking about, for example, Paul from Wind that we've already gone over in the previous video. Machinist would be able to help you take that out, but at a heavy cost. So I don't know how much I like this card, but you know what? Having the option to have removal is never that bad. All right. Next up, we've got Gigas. Not the prettiest guy, but you know, Gigas is from Theater Rhythm, a multi-card 4CP giant monster. And the cost, that's kind of the theme of this opus, is that it costs 0 to activate and turn into a forward. And the forward is going to be, and Gigas is going to turn into a 9,000 power forward. But when Gigas attacks, Gigas will not activate during your next active phase. You can only use this ability once per turn. So this is kind of interesting. 4CP 9K technically, right? And you're able to do this every turn during your turn or your opponent's turn. So it's a bit of a stabilizing card. You can go ahead and activate it so that you can block as a 9,000 power forward. So that's going to be pretty effective. And when you want to swing for the win, being a 9,000 power forward is going to be quite relevant as well. So this card's not that bad, especially since you're able to, you don't have to pay anything to use this ability. I'm not sure if it's going to see much play in the current meta for standard for constructed, but in sealed, I think this card is quite relevant and is going to help you stabilize things if needed. Okay. Next up, we've got this cute little lady. This sign of the 7th Dawn. Yay, we got more sign support. So Krill from 14 is a sign of the 7th Dawn, 2 CP backup, so that's always good. On top of the fact that for 1 earth and 1 of any element, and you dull it, choose 1 for you control during this turn, it cannot be returned to its owner's hand by opposing summons or abilities. So one of the weaknesses of earth at times was being hit by, let's say, Leviathan or Heroic Yuna, having your forwards bounce, as they're kind of costly and they usually don't have haste. So this will help you prevent it, but it feels a little bit niche. So unless water makes a pretty big resurgence, especially the versions of the mono water decks or water and other dual or multiple color decks, multiple element decks that include water and bounce effects, this card might not be that relevant right now. Oh, but in sealed, I mean, yes, there is Leviathan and water, but I don't think there's too many effects that return your forward to your hand. So I don't know how I feel about this in constructed, but I'll have to check again. Okay. Next up, we've got a card that we spoiled over in the Toronto Crystal Cup. K-Sith, 2CP backup from Final Fantasy 14. That's a Watchman. Ooh, look at those big guys watching you. 2 Earth CP and Dole. Put K-Sith into your break zone. Choose one summon, choosing a forward you control. Cancel its effect. Now, this is a 2CP backup that I can definitely get behind. This kind of effect is quite relevant. Normally, ice is one of the main elements that gets to cancel summons. I mean, Earth does have Carbuncle, but being able to put that on a backup, that's especially a 2CP backup that can break itself, I think is going to be quite relevant. I would definitely add maybe 1 or 2 of these cards to my constructed decks. And in sealed, this card is a bomb. It's so good. Because sometimes your opponent might only have 1 or like just a few key summons that would really swing the game, and having a 2CP backup that can cancel out those effects mid-late game can actually save you, if not just win you the game sometimes. Okay, next up we're going to go over, well, Invoker, one of the multi-cards. So it's been done before. Haven't seen Invoker currently used in Standard. And so I'm not really going to go too much into that, as I don't really feel like it has much of a spot in the current meta. But in sealed, 1 CP backups can really help you out. We're talking about, being able to dull any of your backups to play out, 1 CP backup. So if you're playing multiple elements, then it's really easy to curve out into that. And if you don't find any backups to begin with, you can go ahead and play it as your first turn backup to kind of curve out a little bit better. And you can pitch any you could pitch a card of any element except for light and dark in simplified sealed format. But if you're playing with a 9-pack format that is going to be at Gen Con, you will not be able to do so. So this card will not be as useful unless you go Mono Earth and you really need those backups to curve out. Okay. Next up, we've got Cactuar, another card that was spoiled a little while back. 4 CP summon from Final Fantasy VIII. Choose one forward, deal it 4,000 damage for each CP of a different element you paid to cast Cactuar. So you'll want to be able to play out at least 2 backups and maybe pitch a card to get a good use out of Cactuar. You don't have to go that far. Just having, let's say, a dual element deck where one of your backups is able to produce a CP of any element that's not Earth and pitch an Earth card to play out Cactuar, you'll be able to deal 8k for 4 cost. So that's an okay ability. Even in Fire, for example, dealing 8k hasn't been so backbreaking that people would actually go out of their way to make it work. Now, the beauty of Cactuar is that you can turn it into, let's say, a 12k or 16k depending on how things turn out, especially if you build your deck around, let's say, Leo and a bunch of backups, then it could be quite relevant. So Cactuar is an interesting card. In Constructed, we'll see if it works out. I think it's a little bit hard to put it together. It might be a little bit too much trouble to get its full effect. But when we're talking about Sealed and you're playing 2-3 elements, Cactuar is going to be a very big deal. Okay, I mean, even if you pitch, like, let's say, an Earth card and another elemental card of a different element, then you'll be able to get 8,000 damage out of it. Next up, we've got Titan. Man, this card has been spoiled recently, and it is amazing. Look at the art. Oh my gosh, I love that thing. The fact that it's an X-Burst, and it's from Mobius 7. And choose one forward you control and one forward opponent controls. The former gains 2,000 power until end of turn. Then the former deals damage equals to its power to the latter. So this is going to be kind of interesting, especially against those Mono Ice discard. If you hit this this card off of into your damage zone, and you have a forward that, let's say, was dulled or frozen, then you'll be able to still use it to break an opposing forward that way, and I think that's very interesting. And just like when people were thinking about Graviton and Heka getting a power boost and plus 2,000 power to a forward before they fight another forward, this one's a little bit better in that sense, that it doesn't take damage back, but it does come at a hefty cost of 5. So it's gonna be interesting if people build out X-Burst decks based on Titan or not. Okay. Next up, we've got one of the cutest cards of the set, Pavlov. So you think Pavlov would be a dog? No, Pavlov is a penguin from Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. So 2 CP backup, dual choose one category Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles forward, gains plus 1,000 power until end of turn. So this would be interesting with Leo and other Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles forwards, but I don't think it's so relevant that I would build my deck around Crystal Chronicles quite yet, but I would be happy if people prove me wrong. Oh, and if it's in Sealed, then yes, you can give your Leo plus 1,000, and I'm not sure how relevant that is unless your board is full of forwards and characters altogether. So we'll have to see if that's really good in Sealed. I think it might be a bit of work, but sometimes you just gotta work with what you get. All right. Let's see, next up we have Hugh Yerk. 5 CP, 7k, not great, but it's an X-Burst though. And it is a warrior, so that's going to help out with, I think it was Ward, to kind of get that tribal plus 2,000 power. And it's a Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicle, so there you go, another Crystal Chronicles to search out with Epitaph. X-Burst, when Hugh Yerk enters the field, you may search for one job warrior and add it to your hand. If you control a card named Leo, Hugh gains plus 1,000 power and Brave. So the fact that you're able to get a card out of it turns into Hugh Yerk into a 3-cost 7k X-Burst. So that's good. And if you have Leo, then it's actually going to be technically a 3-drop 8k and Brave. So that's going to be interesting. But I wonder if in constructed, there's definitely ways to kind of get around it. It feels a little bit cute because if you were to break apart, uh, take out a key element, a key character from that setup, then it kind of feels like it falls apart. Now, in sealed, being able to search out for a warrior, for example, if you were to play Earth and Earth and Fire, you definitely have a couple options. And if you have Leo as well, then that little power boost is gonna help. Okay. Next up, pretty excited for this card. Just like this playmat, this one is just a mat, but he likes to play. All right, 6 cost AK. It's a monk, Final Fantasy 11. For anybody that played 11, they might remember this guy. Uh, the job monk forwards and card name monk. Actually, hold on. The job monk forwards and the card name monk forwards you control cannot be dulled by opposing summons or abilities. And when Matt enters the field, you may search for one job monk or one card name monk and add it to your hand. So this card is technically a 4 cost 8k because you're able to search out a card name or job monk and be able to give all of your monks, including Matt himself, the ability to be like the Opus 1 guy, where they cannot be dulled by summons or abilities. That could be pretty good, especially if Iceman is still around. But at a 6 cost, sometimes it might be a little bit difficult to actually make it come out to the field, and then you'd still be susceptible to Mateus, I suppose, if you were to play against mono ice. But I think this card might be able to find a home in a couple decks, especially if they're, let's say, standard unit and monk themed. Okay. Oh, and in sealed, well, being able to search out a monk could be relevant if you have one in your deck. Okay. Next up, another card that was revealed. Philia. Wow, that art is amazing. You've got to admit, like, Square Enix and Hobby Japan really outdid themselves with this one. So it's a 6 cost backup from Final Fantasy 14. That's a Science of 7th done. Yay! More Scion support. When Philia enters the field, choose up to 2 characters in your break zone, add them to your hand. That is huge. And after that, you have 2 CP, one of any element, and Dole, and put Philia into the break zone. Choose one light character or dark character and break it. So we're going to go over the light and dark characters later. They can be pretty relevant, especially the dark one, which actually I don't have right now. I think this card's going to be interesting. It's pretty good, but keep in mind that if the dark character you're trying to get rid of on your opponent's field is Emperor, you will not be able to use her action abilities to break the Emperor. So that's going to be a little tricky. But being able to return 2 characters in your break zone to your hand is going to be really good. Keep in mind you won't be able to get summons, but being able to get back, let's say, a Dataluma and a Warrior of Light, for example, a wall, could be really good. And in terms of, I find that CP, like, this card would be more of a mid to late game, you could say, when you want to play it out and get back a good amount of, let's say, effective forwards to deal with your opponent's field is going to be good. But you're going to want to keep a backup slot open for her if you do that. So it's up to you if you feel like this card is really good. I think the art is amazing, and I definitely think that she has room in decks. There's room for her in decks that aren't, let's say, ice or lightning, where you want to return forwards sometimes when you're mid to late game instead of drawing into an endless amount of summons and backups. Go ahead and get a forward that was giving your opponent trouble, and this actually works with characters as well. So if you were to have a deck that's based around specials, being able to go ahead and search out copies of the character that you want to use a special for could be good. All right, next up we've got Mushu, the Mushisu. Okay, sorry, it's not the Mushu Dragon. Anyways, multi-card 2-drop monster, and it's a Marduk. and one Earth CP, one of any element, put Moshusu to the break zone, choose one dull forward and break it. So that's kind of interesting. It's still costing you 4 though, so I don't know how that feels in constructed. I don't feel really good about it, but when we're talking about sealed, uh, as soon as you play this card out, you're able to use it right away. And if they attack into you with a forward that's giving you trouble, go ahead and crack it. I think this card is very good. It does not give us restriction in terms of the cost or power level of a forward that you want to break. So as long as they're not active or that they don't have Brave, for example, then this card is going to be relevant in sealed. Right, next up, we've got another really cute card. Moogle Brothers, look at us, we're singing, yay! Anyways, 3 cost backup, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, Moogle. And the Moogle has that effect where you can look at the top 5 cards of your deck for a job Moogle and put one of them in your hand, the rest at the bottom of your library in any order. And then after that, you can also dull it and put it to the break zone to play one job Moogle of cost 2 or less from your hand onto the field. I don't really know how I feel about that. I think it's kind of cool that it has synergies with itself, and that as long as let's see, 2 or less from your hand onto the field. Yeah, being able to put out a job Moogle of cost 2 or less from your hand onto the field could help out. And sometimes being able to, let's say, you could say put such a backup into the break zone to open up a slot, and if you drew another one, then you would be able to chain Moogles if you wanted to. This could be an interesting card, and I could be sleeping on it and not really know exactly how good it is, but it's adorable, so I'll probably end up giving it a try anyways. Alright, next up, we're talking about monks earlier. Here's a monk. 3 cost 7k, that's on curve, multi-card standard unit. Dull, put monk into the break zone, choose one dull forward, deal it 7,000 damage. So this card should be pretty effective against 7,000 power forwards and decks. I'm not really feeling it for constructed, and in sealed, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting that she's 7,000 power, but she has the ability to deal 7,000 power. So it feels a bit redundant. I don't know how I feel about this card. In constructed, probably not, and in sealed, well, it's still a 3 cost 7k, so that's never too bad, right? Okay, let's see what else. Oh, all right, some of the good cards, or the extremely good cards. One of them being Tola. So Tola this is a new version of her. So we've had I believe it was Opus 1 and Opus 5, and now we have Opus 6. This one, definitely from Final Fantasy 14, Silent 7th Dawn, and Ishtola cannot be blocked by opposing summons or abilities. No, Ishtola cannot be broken by opposing summons or abilities that don't deal damage. So that's pretty nice, kind of like Vincent from Opus 2, the legendary. And if you control 3 or more job Silent 7th Dawn, where other than Ishtola gains Brave. So part of the package for Silent 7th Dawn does include Earth, and I believe the other element would be, let me see, Lightning. So it might not be that hard to actually get up to 3 more job Silent of the 7th Dawn. And to be able to give Ishtola Brave would be pretty nifty. Kind of like Vincent is able to get a Yuffie to help him out. And when Ishtola attacks, choose one forward opponent controls. If you control 5 or more Job Silent 7th Dawn other than Ishtola, delete 8,000 damage. So wow, that is pretty amazing if you control a decent amount of Silent 7th Dawn. But I want to see how it turns out. I think it's going to be good, but I still think the other Ishtola is just so amazing and so flexible that I might end up running the other one instead if I were to ever play Earthwind. Okay. Last but not least, I've already shown you this picture. Leo. So Leo's pretty interesting, being able to, his second ability. So it's a 1 CP Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles King for 1,000 power. So that's way under curve, but it's 1 so it's not that bad, right? It's cost 1 to play it out. It's not that bad, and uh, Leo can get bigger. I mean, we're talking about for each character other than Leo you control, Leo gains plus 1,000 power. So that could be relevant in terms of building out, let's say, monsters deck or a bunch of backups. And the fact that all backups you control can produce CP of any element, that seems kind of niche. So I will have to see how that goes. But being able to search out Leo in this set with the Epitaph can actually help you kind of set up a difficult situation for your opponent. Okay? All right, and that's it for the Earth cards. So thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them down below. And otherwise, thank you very much for MagicTechGames.com. That's our sponsor, where they currently have a trade list and a buy list. So go ahead and turn in some cards to them so that you may go ahead and I guess you could say pre-order an Opus 6 box that will come in shortly after release next week. So that's definitely an avenue to take if you have too many of the same card, or if you play a lot of organized play or constructed formats where you can win extra packs and extra cards. So go ahead and check out MagicTechGames.com. They also have Opus 6 boxes available for sale. And thank you very much for tuning in. I'm Lord from the Break Zone, and we will catch you next time.